The planning and preparation of your website is probably one of the most important phases in the entire web development process. I read somewhere recently that said that planning should account for about 90% of your time and the actual coding is only about 10%. I realize this is a class where the coding is very new, so this is not exactly a true statement, but it does emphasize the importance of planning when developing your website. That's why over the course of this semester, these assignments that you're going to be working on, you will notice that 3 of them are all planning. The 4th one is the only one that involves coding. So the first assignment really does deal with the true planning, the thinking about what it is about your website. What is its purpose? Who are you trying to attract? There are 5 different steps within this planning process that's going to relate to assignment 1. So the first step in the planning process is to define the website's purpose. What is it about? Is it about a product? Is it about a service? And then you'll add some description. And we will get more into each of these steps as we move through this presentation. The second step is to make sure that you understand the marketing objectives. So now that you know the website's purpose and what it's about, what is the marketing objective? Are you trying to attract people to your site? Are you trying to introduce a new product? Are you trying to establish a brand awareness or brand presence? So you need to understand what the marketing objective is. And in this case, we're also going to be talking about 2 different options when it comes to addressing your marketing objective. And that is the lead generation and subscription models. And I will talk about this in more detail in just a few minutes. The third is identifying your audience, because your website and whatever it is that you've defined in step 1 is not going to be attractive to everyone as much as you would like it to be. There are generally going to be some narrower audiences that are interested in what you have to say on your website. So that being said, think about even a company like Walmart or Target. They're both discount retailers, but they have slightly different audiences. Generally speaking, the audiences at Walmart tend to be in smaller or more rural communities based on where Walmart initially built their stores, where Target tends to be more urban. Target also tends to be more higher income level. Again, some of it is based on geography, urban versus rural, but not always. So even though they both sell things like toothpaste and clothing and home goods and this sort of thing, they still have a different audience. So this is going to be an important part of step number 3. Now, once you know your audience, in step number 4, you're going to need to figure out how are you going to reach them? And there are a number of ways that you can do that. And we will be working through this in both assignment 1 and again in assignment 2. And finally, evaluate your assets. And by that I mean evaluate, in this particular instance, the images that you're going to be using on your website, whether they be logos, photographs, or illustrations. So now let's start digging into each of these 5 steps a little bit further so you have a better understanding of what it is that we're trying to accomplish. In the first step, we need to define the website's purpose. At its core, we just have to ask the question, what is your site going to be about? Is it a product or a service? These are really the 2 big dividers. Is it talking about a physical product, or is it talking about some sort of service that might be provided? Then go ahead and describe that for the purposes of the creative brief that you will be building, but do not go into every minute detail, just enough so that the person who is reading the document, in the case of this class, it'll be me, but think about this if you were doing this as a freelance project and you needed to define what this website is all about and give enough detail so that the reader could understand without having to ask too many questions. Now, once you understand what your site is about, then we need to define what is the marketing objective. In other words, what are the goals, or what is the overarching objective? What are you trying to achieve? There are a number of different types of marketing objectives that can be used. Some are simply advertising. You're advertising or promoting a product or service and trying to reach people. E-commerce, of course, which we're all familiar with, to sell products. Affiliated marketing or affiliate marketing, which is where your website works to promote other products and other services. And so it's kind of a central location for those. And then the last two, which is what we are going to be using in this class for this project. The first of which is lead generation. And I'm going to go into detail in this very shortly. And the last is subscription based. And these are the two that we're going to focus on because one of the other terms that you're going to hear when we move into the next assignment is a funnel plan. And you're going to be developing a funnel. The essence of that, and we'll get more into this in the second assignment, but the essence of a funnel plan is you have this broad reach of who you're trying to attract to your website. So you've got all these potential visitors, and it's eventually going to narrow down to the person who finally takes that action or that goal that you're trying to achieve. In both lead generation and subscription models, your goal is to get them to fill out a web form so that you can collect information and act on it. They have slightly different purposes. Because they collect these web forms, they actually work well with MailChimp and when we learn how to do HTML emails and create and cultivate email lists. So let's go into each of these a little bit more. The first is the lead generation model. And just to understand what a lead is, it's a person who, in general, they may not, explicitly say they've expressed interest in your company's product or service, but they've come to your website and they become interested enough that they start reading through the content that you have and looking at the pictures that you have and really clicking through the links. So they've become genuinely interested in whatever it is that your site is about. To get to the lead generation part, they must fill out a form where they're providing you with information. And a lot of times this is to request more information or follow-up contact from you or the business that the website is about. For example, if you are in a business-to-business environment, you're managing the website, the types of products or services that you might sell, for example, if you are selling some sort of IT services, a company that manages the IT, the information technology pieces for other companies, this isn't exactly something that you can sell on a website, but you can certainly provide a ton of information on the website. And for those who are truly interested, they can fill out a form, talk about what it is that they are specifically interested in, if there's multiple services, and then a salesperson at that company will receive the email and follow up with that person. That is a lead because now they become a prospective customer. The other type is, it's related to this, they fill out the form and instead of contacting them to buy something, you might send them a brochure. For example, take the university's website. They are looking for lead generation in the form of students and prospective students. So if you're looking around on the website and decide, hey, I really like this university, I'm going to fill out this form that's going to request more information. And they're going to then in turn send you a packet of information that might have some of the majors that you're interested in, more about the community, more about the town. So that now you are a lead and they've collected your information so that they can contact you in the future with, of course, the end goal being that you apply and then enroll at the university. So that's lead generation. The other is the subscription model. And this is not to be confused with subscription in the sense of, like, say, a Tinker Crate box or Bark box or let's see, Harry's Shave, I think is another one, where you subscribe and you receive a product like every month. This is not the type of subscription service we're talking about. Nor are we talking about the subscription service that would be, say, an Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, any of those where you're actually paying for a service to get specific streaming type of information. This type of subscription model is where your site is set up that you are trying to collect information. So here's the part where it's similar to lead generation. You're trying to collect information in order to build an email list, a database of customer information with the purpose of developing a relationship through regular contact with that person. So they have expressed interest in your product or service, and you're not necessarily trying to even sell anything, although that's probably the ultimate long-term goal, but it might be that they're signing up for a newsletter. So every month or every week, a newsletter goes out with updates about what's happening at the organization, any sort of events or things that they might be interested in. Related to that, if it might be for, say you are a small brick and mortar store and you're located in a small community, so you're looking to reach more people to get them to your store. So you might be sending out weekly promotions via email that if they come in and they let you know that they saw this on, they received the email, maybe there's a special code or a coupon that they can print out. That is a reason that you're asking them to subscribe to get that regular information. Retailers are really good at doing this. Many bloggers that have some significant sized blogs also do this, that you can sign up to receive newsletters. Nonprofit organizations are another one that they send out regular information, usually on like a monthly basis. So the idea here in a subscription model is to nurture a relationship. So with the lead generation, the idea is to follow up with a customer with the idea of making a potential sale. Subscription means that there's already an interest. So maybe they've already purchased something. Maybe they already follow the information that's on your site. Maybe they're already a customer at a brick and mortar store. And the idea is you want them to keep coming back. So you're going to collect their information with the purpose of sending out an email in some form or another. While both models, they require the collection of information through a form, and they do require contact with the customer, their purposes are slightly different. So you need to think about this because these are one of the two models that you must use for the purposes of our semester website, is what seems more appropriate, lead generation or subscription. Now that we know what kind of model we're going to use and what the objective of our site is, we need to figure out who are we trying to reach. As is described in the assignment, the hint, it is not everyone, because if you try and market to everyone, you're not going to reach anyone. And I did mention this earlier when I talked about the differences between Walmart and Target, that while they both are discount retailers and they do have similar markets, they're different. So I want you to take some significant amount of time in this planning process and think about who is interested in your site. The very first question you need to think about is, are you trying to attract individuals or businesses? Because this is at the core of it. If you're looking at individuals, then there's a whole bunch of additional questions that you're going to want to ask. And the reason I highlight this one is this is probably more likely where most of your websites are going to be. If you're looking at reaching individuals, think about some basic demographics. Is age important? Is this a product that might appeal more towards young people? Is it something that might appeal more towards older people? Or in between, kind of more the middle age. Think about this from the standpoint of cars. There are luxury cars, which generally are going to appeal to an older audience just because of finances. If you'll notice on the list, income is also one of the things. And then there are cars that they try to market as being more fun, more economical, both gas-wise and just the price of the car, so for monthly payments, which generally is going to appeal to a younger audience. And even within that, there are nuances. So think about age, think about things like gender. Is your product or service more appealing to women or men? Is ethnicity important? For example, in the St. Cloud area where I currently live, we've had a number of halal groceries open up, which have a very specific ethnic market that they're catering to within the St. Cloud area. Likewise, think about things like income and occupation. Another one to consider, which technically falls under a demographic, but because it's very specific to geography, I like to break it down because there's some other elements to think about. Is this a product or service that's going to be most appealing to a very local audience? Again, if you're going to be promoting, say, for a local small business, then it might just be in your community and the area around. Yes, anybody in the world can see your website. That's not the point. It's who is actually going to be interested in those services. Is it regional, like within a certain area of the state? Is it the entire state? Is it regional as in, say, the Midwest or the East Coast? Is it national? Is it international? So things to think about. Psychographics is a really interesting area. Are you trying to appeal to people who have particular feelings, opinions, beliefs, or attitudes on a particular item or service? Without trying to get too political in this, that is not my goal. But if you are out there and you are trying to promote something that would be, say, for the LGBTQ community, you are obviously going to try and reach people who have certain feelings or beliefs towards that and tend to agree with your products or services. So you need to think about that as far as one potential way of identifying your audience. And finally, we look at lifestyle, and this is very related to the psychographics portion, and it's identified by things like interests and hobbies, subcultures. So are you part of a gaming subculture? And of that, what kind of gaming? Tabletop gaming, video gaming, console gaming? Are you part of the, say, the snowboard subculture, where that's a really important part of your life? I'm an avid fiber enthusiast, so my hobbies include things like knitting and spinning. So that is a particular lifestyle interest of mine. So think about these things as they pertain to the particular topic of your site. If you're looking at businesses, and I don't have a detailed list on this, if you're looking at businesses, you're going to be thinking about, are you targeting small businesses, large businesses, particular elements of a business, like a human resources department or the IT department, the marketing department? Who typically owns those businesses? So then you're going to start crossing over into the demographics, or not necessarily even who owns these businesses, but who might be making a decision about the product or service that you have. So then you start thinking about the age and the gender, and so therefore how you would appeal that way. So we've identified our audience. How the heck are we going to reach them? So what we're going to be thinking about for the purposes of this class is you need to identify at least 4 different ways in which you are going to reach your audience. What I've identified here on this slide, just some examples to get you thinking. But are you going to go from search engines, using what's referred to as organic search, meaning just when you type into the search bar and you click on one of the results, and that would be organic search. So that would be using something like Google or Bing. Are you going to pay for some search results? Those are the ones that would say sponsored on them or ad, and they're usually right up at the top. You pay for placement based on keywords. So that would be, for example, like Google AdWords. Are you going to set up a page for whatever site that you're promoting that would go alongside it on Facebook or Instagram, or a Twitter account that would go with it? And on any of these other social media platforms, are you just going to set up a page or a profile for whatever it is that you're promoting in your website? Or are you going to buy ad space targeting the demographic that would show up then in their news feeds? So you have to think about these in different ways. What I haven't shown on this particular slide is when reaching your audience, many of you might also think about some traditional mediums for attracting an audience, such as posters, postcards, mailings, catalogs, any of those sorts of things that might drive an audience that you are trying to reach to get to your website. So you'll need to identify at least 4 of these in the assignment, and with a brief description of what it is or who it is that you're trying to attract and why you think it's appropriate. And finally, we need to talk about the assets. In this particular case, what I'm referring to as assets is the image assets that you're going to use as part of the content on your site. We need to think about things like, are you going to have a logo? And if so, who's going to create it? Is it something that you're going to create, or are you going to find it? Or I suppose in the other instance, if you're actually working on this for another business, are they going to provide it? For any photographs that are going to be on your site, where are you going to get them? Illustrations, photographs. Where are you going to get them? Are you going to do them yourself? Take the photographs or create the illustrations either using pen and paper or using something like Illustrator or Photoshop? Are you going to look at Creative Commons? Creative Commons, most of the time you can look at sites like Flickr, Pexels, Pixabay. These cross over. They're Creative Commons, but they're also stock images in some cases. But they have license that make it free for you to use for these purposes. Or are you going to use stock images where you would actually have to pay for the images, but then once you pay for them, you can use them on your site. And any of those, some of them range from just a few dollars to several $100s, depending on what it is. Obviously, we're not going to be spending several $100s for our sites, but it's an option. If you're looking just on, say, Google for images, it is not advisable to just pull those images down without knowing what the source is. So you need to identify, if you find those images and would like to use them, how would you go about getting permission from the owner to use that image? Because that is really key so that we do not infringe on the intellectual property rights of the person who actually created the image that you would like to use. The same goes true for any text sort of content. I'm not going to go into that because the goal of this is you're going to be writing your own content, but it still is something to be considered because you don't want to plagiarize the work of others. So copyright considerations are incredibly important when you're considering the content that goes onto your website. And so think about where and what you're going to use for images and provide at least 2 examples of those that you think that you might use. Don't worry about them being the actual images that you will be using, but they're examples that would be representative of something you might use. So as I said at the beginning, planning is absolutely key. It's pivotal in the success of the development of your website is understanding who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to accomplish with your site, because that will direct all other elements. So with that, the best of luck in the planning process of your site, and I look forward to seeing what everybody is going to be working on.